Well, what were we even worried about? Arsenal have had a striker in their ranks all along, Mikel Marino. The Arsenal faithful kept his name ringing through the stadium after his first goal. And let me tell you, it wasn't just because of the scoreline. If that was an audition for the striker's role, then Marino didn't just get the part, he owned the stage. The blueprint for Arsenal moving forward should be crystal clear. Feed this man crosses in the box, and he'll make magic happen. It's funny how football works sometimes. For weeks, we've all been debating whether Arsenal needed to break the bank for a new striker in the January window. Pundits were falling over themselves suggesting names, but sometimes the answer is right under your nose. Marino showed today that he's got that natural striker's instinct. That touch for the second goal? Pure velvet. The way he adjusted his body position in a split second, reading the flight of the ball like he had some sort of telepathic connection with it. That's not something you can teach. And let's talk about his movement in the box. Before he even got on the score sheet, he was giving Leicester's defenders nightmares. The way he ghosted between the center backs, always finding that pocket of space. You know you're watching something special when a player makes such intelligent runs that even his teammates look surprised at the options he's creating. You could feel the anticipation build every time the ball went wide, everyone in the stadium knowing that if Arsenal could get a decent cross in, Marino would make something happen. People often say the hardest thing in football is putting the ball in the back of the net, but Marino made it look like child's play today. The pressure of leading the line for a title-contending Arsenal side, it rolled off him like water off a duck's back. That's the mark of a special player, making the difficult look effortless, thriving when the spotlight is at its brightest. But while Marino will dominate the headlines, and rightfully so, we need to take a moment to appreciate the absolute gem that is Nwaneri. My word, what a player we witnessed today. He wasn't just a bright spark in Arsenal's attack. He was a blazing inferno of creativity and drive. The way he kept pushing forward, constantly driving the team up the pitch with those penetrating runs, it was like watching a veteran in a youngster's body. You know what really sets him apart? That fearlessness, that pure, undiluted confidence that only youth can bring. Every time he got the ball, there was only one direction in his mind: forward. The thing about Nwaneri is he's got this rare combination of technical skill and raw athleticism. We've seen plenty of youngsters who can do the fancy footwork in training, but when it comes to the intensity of a Premier League match, they shrink. This kid, he seems to thrive on it. And let's talk about that cross for Marino's first goal. Absolute perfection. The kind of delivery strikers dream about, floating in with just the right weight and curve. Marino might get credit for the finish, but that ball was served on a silver platter. It's funny how football works, isn't it? Sometimes it takes an injury crisis for these young talents to get their chance. And when they do, my oh my, do they grab it with both hands. Nwaneri hasn't just knocked on the first team door, he's kicked it down. The most telling compliment I can give him? Arsenal fans have barely noticed Saka's absence. That's saying something. Think about the pressure on this kid's shoulders. Stepping into the boots of Bukayo Saka, Arsenal's talisman, their go-to man, that's enough to make even seasoned pros nervous. But Nwaneri? He played with the freedom of someone having a kickabout in the park. When you can make people forget about one of the Premier League's most electric wingers, you know you're doing something right. That's not just saying something. That's screaming it from the rooftops. The scary thing is, this feels like just the beginning. You can see there's still raw edges to his game that need polishing, but the foundation, it's solid gold. Arteta's got a serious talent on his hands here, and if today's performance is anything to go by, Arsenal's future on that right wing is in very safe hands. Speaking of chances, that moment in the second half when it was still goalless, that curling effort that kissed the crossbar, if that had gone in, we'd be talking about a goal of the season contender. And while we're shining a light on the youth products, Lewis Skelly deserves massive credit for that crucial block when the game was in the balance. These academy graduates aren't just making up the numbers. They're making a real difference. The Arsenal defense today was something else entirely, a masterclass in organization and resilience. Leicester looked completely out of ideas. The only real chance I can recall was when IU managed to break free and whip that cross to the far post, but even then, Lewis Skelly had it covered. Gabriel, in particular, was an absolute colossus at the back. The way he commanded that defensive line, you'd think he was born to do it. And let's give credit where it's due to Leicester's defense as well. Yes, they eventually conceded twice, but let's put this in perspective. They kept Arsenal at bay for 80 minutes. No small feat against one of the most potent attacks in the league. Their defensive shape was like watching a masterclass in compact defending. They were tighter than a drum, forcing Arsenal to try and thread needles through microscopic gaps. The fact that it took something special to break them down speaks volumes about their defensive organization. Now, let's talk about those tactical tweaks from Arteta. Pure managerial brilliance. Sterling was having one of those days where he looked like he was trying to solve a Rubik's Cube while riding a unicycle, completely out of sorts. Trossard through the middle wasn't working either, but that's where Arteta showed his tactical acumen. That triple switch, taking Sterling off, moving Trossard to the left, and introducing Merino through the middle. That's the kind of decision that separates good managers from great ones. The moment Merino stepped onto that pitch, Leicester's defensive game plan crumbled like a house of cards. Finally, Arsenal had that focal point, that presence in the box that kept defenders occupied and created space for others. The implications for the title race are massive. Instead of potentially falling 10 points behind Liverpool at the start of the week, Arsenal have kept themselves right in the mix, just 4 points off the pace. Liverpool face Wolves tomorrow, and I know I shouldn't say this as a neutral, but for the sake of pure footballing drama, if they drop points, we could be in for one of the most exciting title races in recent memory. 4 points. That's nothing in the grand scheme of things. That's one bad weekend for Liverpool, one moment of magic from Arsenal, and suddenly we're looking at a 1-point gap. This is what championship caliber teams do. They find a way. When the opposition sets up to frustrate, when the usual patterns aren't working, when plan A goes out the window, they dig deep and find that moment of quality. Arsenal showed today that they have that in their locker. They showed that even when it's not pretty, even when they have to grind it out, they can get the job done. That's what winners do. As we've seen time and time again in this beautiful game, it's not just about how you play when everything's clicking. It's about how you perform when the odds are stacked against you. Arsenal passed that test today with flying colors. The depth of their squad, the tactical flexibility, the mental fortitude, all the ingredients of a team that's in this title race for the long haul. This has been Across the Pitch, over and out.